Hold on.
Oh.
Spice.
Oh. Spicy.
Oh.
Yeah, spicy foods.
I think I just sucked a pepper right up my nose.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Okay, that was bad timing. Shit. Woo. All right, cool. We'll get this thing going eventually.
All right.
What the hell is up, people, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Street PX. I am Casper.
And this is Jim Watkins. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. This is episode 53, December 1st, and believe it or not, we're almost done with this year.
That's right, man. We had a great lineup this year, didn't we?
We have. We've had great guests. We've had some fantastic events, contests.
That's right.
But it's not over yet. We have the secret print exchange. That's that's going on this month. So there's still plenty to do. What is today? Since today is December 1st, yesterday obviously was the deadline. So big apologies to anybody out there that didn't get their sign-ups in time. But fear not, there's always next year. But for the 50 or so artists that signed up, that we've had a great response. And I cannot wait to see the prints and talent that gets kind of flown out around the globe this holiday.
You have to mention, how many did we have last year?
Last year, I think we had probably about 20, give or take.
So, man, you see how much this has grown in popularity? Yeah,
it is.
Man. And
it's not just here in the U.S. either. We have people participating from Australia, from London, from I think we got a sign up from Hungary. I mean, it's going all over the globe, and I cannot wait to see everything that gets shipped around.
Fantastic, man.
Yeah. Oh, and before I forget, just to all of you that are participating in the Secret Print Exchange, I beg of you two things. A, when you ship your package, please send us the tracking number. We want to help kind of make sure everything goes nice and smooth. Additionally, we didn't really push it last year, but we will this year. We want a photo of you with the print that you receive. So we want to be able to feature and display these on the website so everybody can kind of see the fun that we're having. And then they can be jealous and come in next year.
Yeah, and I was one of the guilty ones. I didn't do the print. I didn't do the picture. So this year, I promise I will. I'll do the picture.
Yes. So before we get to the plugs, just really quick thing on our sponsor. Let's give a shout out to Glass Key Photo.
All right.
San Francisco's premier analog photography store. Perfect place to go and get some used gear, get repairs done on your old gear, grab some film, maybe a zine or two from a local artist here in the Bay. And just damn good people to know in the area.
And those guys know everything about analog. So
they do. And they do keep this place open 7 days a week from 12 to 6, just the two of them. And so whenever you're in San Francisco, just go take a look at Glass Key Photo. It's located at 1230 Sutter Street. And, say hello.
That's right.
Yep. As for things going on, I know you got something going on down there in the South Bay. Let's hear about that.
Well, this is an interesting exhibit. I want to bring this up. The San Jose Museum of Art is having an exhibit, and it's called a photography exhibit. It's called "This Is Not a Selfie: Self-Portraits from the Audrey and Sidney Ermis Collection." And here's the lineup of people who have images in here. We're talking about works by Diane Arbus, Robert Mapplethorpe, Alfred Stieglitz, Andy Warhol, Bernice Abbott, Lee Friedlander, Danny Lyon, Helmut Newton, William Wegman, and Leonard Nimoy. Just to name a few. Yeah,
really?
No, just to name a few. This sounds like it's going to be an interesting exhibit, and I'm definitely going to check it out.
Well, when is this?
It's up now, and it's going on through January 14th.
Oh, so there's still some time. Good.
Still some time. Still some good time to check it out.
That's a hell of a lineup.
I'm telling you.
Have you been to the space yet?
No, not yet. I'm gonna check it out. Probably sometime later this week.
Okay, I see.
Probably sometime next week.
Next week? Well, that's cool because I psychically I see a group of us walking through the front doors. I think we can make that happen, right?
way down in San Jose?
I think we can. I'll go down there for that kind of a show.
Yeah, we'll check it out. Yeah, most definitely.
Right on. So we'll put some more information in the show notes. Additionally, a friend of ours and past guest, Stephen Bowman, has a great exhibit going on at the Leica store that's going to be launching here at the cuff of the new year, right there on January 8th through February 10th. This is Almost True. It's a complimentary exhibit to go along with the book that he is going to be dropping. I believe those are going to be shipping here at the end of this year, beginning of next year. And and if you're in the San Francisco area, go take a look at the Leica store there in January so you can see these images blown up. They're all original, really great stuff. I think I saw some silver gelatin prints he's already started putting together to get ready for this show.
Oh man, nice.
Yeah.
I've seen some of that work, man. It's incredible.
It is. And the if you want to meet Stephen or anybody from our show here, or just a number of photographers in the Bay Area, the artist reception and book launch is Thursday, January 11th. There at 463 Bush Street. That's Leica store in San Francisco.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Yep. Oh, and if you did not get in on the Kickstarter campaign and get your reservation for a book, you can still go and buy one. That's at F8 Books. That's 8 like the number. So F8books.com.
Nice.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Cool. Well, that's all the plugs we have. Above all, contact us. Please hit us up with an email at contact@streetpx.com. If for nothing else, then just to say hi. Or better yet, take our survey. You can find the link over at streetpx.com. Just a handful of questions. It'll take you all of maybe 5 minutes. But whatever we hear from you helps us make this show the best it can be.
And I want to remind people that if you guys have any exhibitions or anything that you want to, tell people about, let us know. We'll talk about it on the show.
Yep,
we'll get it out as one of the plugs.
Yeah, that's what this opening is all about. We want to get some plugs out there. And of course, there's also our Patreon account where you can throw some cold hard cash our way, and everything that goes through Patreon goes right back into the show to help upgrade our gear and keep our bandwidth flowing. Or you can pick up a t-shirt gift for yourself or that shutterbug in your life. I think we have about 30 designs now to choose from, so you shouldn't be short on options.
Oh, man. And these are all Casper designs too. The man is a genius.
Yes.
Check it out. Definitely.
Casper Originals, just as crappy as the rest of my work. But no, I joke. I think I'm kind of proud of these.
You should be.
But anyway, enough of all that. Let's jump into this interview with documentary photographer Najib Joe Hakim.
All right.
All right, and we're back again with a great photographer and a friend of ours, Najib Joe Hakim. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Joe,
Casper.
welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
So we wanted to kind of just jump right into the mix of it all and start out with that origin story. So I'm correct in asking you were born in Beirut, right?
Yeah, Beirut, Lebanon.
Yes. And you came to America about what time?
I was about a year and a half old.
Year and a half? Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Oh, okay.
Still wrapped up and in the arms as you're
no,
coming
that
over.
was my little brother who was wrapped up. I got to be tugged along by the arm or the ear.
No child leashes back in 1970s, right? Well, you want to kind of describe just kind of your background to us and kind of build off of that for us?
Yeah, I'm a Palestinian-American. I grew up mostly in this country, first 10 years or so in New York City, and then we moved down to Virginia, outside D.C. And after grad school, I hopped on a motorcycle, headed west, and spent a couple years in Arizona, and then came up to San Francisco.
Excellent.
Nice. Now, why did you hop on that motorcycle and head west? I mean, it sounds so pioneerish,
Yeah, I didn't have any horses.
Yeah, too bad.
No, I always wanted to go west. I remember as a kid watching something about the Summer of Love. It's appropriate this year.
That's the 1970s.
Yeah, or 67. I was 12 years old, and all this, the hippies and the music, looked really great on TV, and I thought that's where I want to go.
Oh, okay.
And halfway through college, maybe 1975 or something, I actually disenrolled. I applied to take a leave of absence, and I was going to hitchhike out here to San Francisco. And my dad didn't like that idea too much. You're just going to get into drugs and, do all this weird stuff. And, but for one time in our whole lives together, he actually used a carrot instead of a stick to convince me.
Oh, yeah.
He had a chance to be stationed in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, for a few years. He was working at the World Bank.
Okay.
And he said, if you're a full-time student, then you get to visit us in Nairobi 3 times in the next 2 years. They pay for your tuition. They pay for this. They pay for that. And I thought, geez, San Francisco's not going anywhere.
Right, yeah.
How often do I get a chance to go to Africa, right?
Yeah.
So
he's got this all planned out for you. But it well planned out,
it
though.
was great. My girlfriend was going to spend her junior year in Paris, so I stopped there and we traveled through Europe together.
Wow.
And on the way to Kenya.
Was this Georgetown?
No, this was from the University of Virginia.
University of Virginia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Georgetown was grad school later.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And so that was great. And I put off San Francisco, but the idea was still in there. And once an opportunity came when I was basically underemployed and looking for something new to do, a friend just showed up and said, I'm getting transferred to Saudi Arabia and I just bought this motorcycle. Oh, you want to buy it? And I said, I started drooling and he said, I'll teach you how to ride it and everything. It's like, cool. I bought the bike. I rode it for 6 months. I set up a plan, to get a master's degree in Arizona, and then
So
I headed
you
west.
You just jumped on the bike and just started driving west, stopping along the way for some school.
Yeah, exactly. I tell people it took me 3 months to get to Arizona, another 2 years to make it to San Francisco.
Wow. Now, is this pre-photography days for you, or were you into photography at this time?
I was already into it, but not in a serious way.
Okay.
I used to take pictures of my G.I. Joes as a kid. I was like really into taking
stop motion.
Yeah, some too, right?
So, that was a lot of fun. I'd set them up, put them in the snow, whatever.
Set up scenes.
Yeah. And then, of course, I was the oldest, so I'd take pictures of my little siblings and stuff. So that was a lot of fun.
No, you were saying a while ago, as far as your dad's plan for you to be able to visit, were you taking pictures when you were going back to like Nairobi or these areas?
I did take some, but I
just snapshots.
A little bit better, I hope, than snapshots. But I certainly don't have the archive to really brag about anything.
Fair enough.
I mean, I wish I was really into it back then because there's so much I could have done. And even on the motorcycle trip, I took some nice pictures. I kept a journal, but it's not like I've been doing the last 27 years here.
Now, were you doing back roads when you were on the motorcycle?
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
Oh, that would have been even better.
Yeah, the only highway I did was somewhere in eastern Tennessee because it had been raining.
Okay.
And I was camping and totally soaked, and I needed to get some breakfast and dry clothes. So somewhere between Knoxville and Nashville, I just got on, I think it's I-40, and just took the straight route.
Yeah.
But,
so now, because most people usually take that at Route 66 path, and at the time you're doing it, it was still actually Route 66 instead of being diced up like it is today.
Not to age you.
I'm doing that pretty well on my own. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing that trip over again and just
I would love to, actually.
Yeah.
I have a bigger bike now because back then I did it on a 440.
Oh my God.
Which isn't much of a bike, but for me it was great. But now I have a 750 and I could do it much easier.
Yeah.
And
it makes a difference on the ass as you're going down the road, depending on the bike.
Absolutely.
Got the images you could get. Oh, man.
Oh,
That'd be great.
I would probably take a northern route this time because I went the southern route before. Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, down to Mississippi and Louisiana, across Texas. And Mexico.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe next time it would be something different. But those areas were so great. I don't know. It's tempting just to do it all over.
Plus, you have the benefit of it, like GoPros and stuff today. You can just attach on your helmet and document it all along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the two of you should go on that trip, man.
I wouldn't. You won't see me complain. Anytime I get a chance to get on the bike and just shut off the world and go.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about that. Like, it's just you, the bike, and the road.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if you're not careful, just you and the road. So you got to be aware of that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You have to be really careful and straight. In fact, I set rules for myself when I left. I said no more than I think it was a couple hours, 2-3 hours or 100 miles a day, and never go past 65. At the time, 55 was the highway limit.
Yep.
And I pretty much held out to that, give or take. But when I got to Texas, I was leaving San Antonio. I was staying with the parents of some friends for a few days. And there was just nothing in West Texas. I hightailed it for 10 hours at 75 miles an hour, stopping only for gas and water till I got to New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yep. That was some of my favorite places to go because you just have miles and miles of just straight line road, and you may not see anybody for an entire day.
Yeah.
All you see are those oil things,
Oh, yeah.
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Now, I just want to kind of circle back real quick. When your family came to the States, am I right in saying you were refugees at the time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to pull back on that, but it just...
No, that's important stuff. My parents were forced out of Palestine, their homes in Palestine. And my mother's family left from Haifa, and they made it directly to Beirut. My dad's family, my dad was actually out of Palestine at the time. And when he returned, he had discovered that his family had left because the fighting had intensified and everything. So he was trying to find them, and he heard that they had worked their way to Jordan. So he crossed over into Jordan, and then he said, nope, they're not here. They went up to Syria. And he ended up going all the way to Lebanon, chasing them. He found them eventually in Lebanon. And the only way we were able to get into Lebanon, apparently, was because Lebanon was being inundated with Palestinian refugees at the time, was to show that we belonged there somehow. And one of my uncles sneaked into the country somehow and rented a place. And so that he got back out, so that when they got to the border with the whole family, they had an address, and that made them legitimate. Plus, we were Christians, and that made the difference to the Lebanese government, which was controlled or dominated by Christians.
Okay.
There was issues there that the French set up back when they got the country from the Turks after the First World War. They pretty much gerrymandered Lebanon out of Syria in order to have a Christian majority.
Wow.
And then that just led to all the troubles that happened ever since then for the last 100 years there. And yeah.
Now it was the conflict and everything that pushed them out. You were saying, do you still have family over there, or did the whole unit come?
Yeah,
you do.
Yeah, all over. My dad's from Jaffa, but I don't know if I have any direct family in Jaffa. But in towns near Jaffa, Lidda and Ramli, near the airport, the big airport, I have family. I have family up in Nazareth, in the Galilee, in Haifa.
Oh, wow.
All over.
Do you ever get to go back and travel? And
I haven't been back since 81.
81.
I went twice in my life. Once after college, I enrolled at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem as a foreign student, which I always found
is kind
ironic.
of odd. Yeah. You're a foreign student in your own, yeah.
And so I went there in 78 and 79 for almost 2 years. And then again, in 81, I went for the summer I had already enrolled at Georgetown as a grad student in Arab studies. And I went back in the summer to help build the then new campus at Birzeit University.
That's an interesting thing to be a part of.
Yeah. Camping out, lifting cinder blocks, digging ditches for a summer. But it was really incredible time because it wasn't all work, that we would go around and meet mayors from the various towns. And it was supposed to be an educational experience. So we met the mayors, we traveled around to some camps, made a lot of friends with, the local people, of course.
So was photography always kind of in your purview, or was that something like as a professional career that came later?
It came later. Actually, it came earlier, and I was stillborn.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Just tucked it away for a while.
Yeah, I as a college kid, I really wanted to do that, be a photographer, but I didn't have the self-confidence. And as soon as I graduated, I went back home to Virginia, Northern Virginia, went straight to the National Geographic office with my portfolio. Could not get past the receptionist. And thought, I'm never going to do it, and just put it all away and started to try something else. But, nowadays I wouldn't just take a simple door in my face kind of feeling. I'm older and stronger, more mature, whatever. But in those days, it set me back a good 15 years on my career.
Your first rejection's a hard one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, if you don't aim for the top, you don't get anywhere, right?
Exactly. And you went for Nat Geo back during the heyday. So
that's the same thing I did. I started when I was starting out in street photography. I went to the cultural center to try to get an exhibit. And here I am, 2 years into photography, trying to get into the cultural center. So pretty much, I got to the receptionist. Well, I probably didn't even get to the receptionist. And they kicked me out, and that was devastating. But you look back on it now, hey. So
it's all part of the whole experience.
That's right, exactly.
Have you, since you've regained your confidence, have you been back to Nat Geo since?
No.
It's like, I'll put that one on the shelf. I've got other things to do now.
Yeah. There are more fun things to do, journalism, photojournalism, documentary.
Which actually brings us to a great point here is your documentary projects. And I'm glad that we kind of embarked into your background and stuff beforehand, because it really sets the stage here. Now, you have two very specific, very, very good projects, Born Among Mirrors and Home Away from Home, which are very similar in their elements there. Which one is it best to jump into first? Is that the Born Among Mirrors?
Born Among Mirrors, yeah.
So this is just kind of expand on what the project is for our listeners and what it entails.
Okay, Born Among Mirrors is a project I did back in 2000. I started shooting it in 2006 after the 2006 war between Israel and Lebanon. And I went there right after the major hostilities ended to document the damage to the country, because it had just rebuilt after 20 or 30 years of civil war. And now everything was destroyed again in a week or two. And
what area of the country did you go to?
From Beirut down to the southern coast.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was there for a couple of weeks. I got my pictures, or at least what I could get, because it was a war zone, and there wasn't access to parts of the country unless you had military authorization. Or something.
Were you ever in danger or anything along this way? Or
Not that I'm aware of.
It's probably good to think back that way.
There were a few times when I'd take a picture of clouds reflected in a pool of water on the street, and the soldier would come up and say, "You can't take pictures here." I said, "I'm just taking pictures of the reflection." And he didn't care, but he's the one with the rifle. So.
Exactly. Best to listen to him. Sometimes you just got to choose your battles.
That's right.
And move on.
Yeah, there were plenty of other puddles and other things.
And plus, tensions are high. You have no idea what the reaction may be if you push back.
Well, he was a young guy, so he's going to be a little bit more nervous about dealing with somebody like me. But I ran into an older cop at one point, because next to my aunt's old house or apartment, there's this big fortress of a police station. And I was taking pictures of the old neighborhood there in my aunt's, flat. And he saw me, and he came up and he said, "You're not supposed to take pictures of this police station." And I just said, "No, I wasn't taking pictures of the police station. I was taking pictures of my aunt's." And he said, "Okay, that's fine." Just chill.
Yeah,
there you go.
So, in my Arabic, I was starting to loosen up with it, so I was able to express myself a little bit better.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't perfect, which is actually a plus, because they can see that you don't really know what you're talking about, and so you can't be dangerous.
Yeah, play the tourist game.
That's right. Yeah.
Better to be a tourist sometimes.
Yeah.
No, the project. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say. So, what was the aim of the project? Why were you there?
Well, I was there to document what had happened in Lebanon, but the whole project totally changed course. It became a project about my family's experience leaving Palestine as refugees, going through Lebanon or using Lebanon as a bridge to become American citizens. Mm-hmm. And that happened because when I got to Lebanon, first thing was I realized that it was 50 years to the week that my family had left Lebanon to move to the United States. Just pure coincidence.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh.
Wow.
And when I got back home, I discovered that my mom had been diagnosed with a cancer. And, the prognosis wasn't good. So old stories and old feelings started to come back, and they took on a new meaning, or more important, a sense of a meaning. And my mother had handed me this old canister of film, the plastic thing. She said, I just found this. I don't know what it is. I don't even know if it's been processed. So I took it, put it in the black bag, opened it up, and it had already been processed. I could feel there was no tin in there or anything. So and I looked at it, I rolled it out, and it was 50-year-old photos of my dad had taken of us leaving Beirut in 1956 at the port, the harbor.
Yeah.
And so suddenly everything was going back to 50 years ago,
Uh-huh.
And I got these pictures that have been lost for 50 years. They've been rolled up for 50 years.
Yeah.
They're still a little curly. And everything just started I started going through boxes of family stuff, photos, and found my family's British Mandate of Palestine passports. Mm-hmm. I found our Lebanese Palestinian refugee ID cards. I found our first U.S. passports. I found a letter from former Governor Rockefeller in New York welcoming us as citizens.
Wow.
And telling us we had responsibilities now to uphold the values of the Constitution, all these incredible documents. So,
Welcome to America. Now get to work.
Yeah. Well, you remember, this was just before Kennedy got in. It was just a few years. So must have been something in the air about, civic responsibility.
Wow.
And
that must have been amazing to find all that stuff.
It was incredible. And I still have it. I don't know what to do with it, but I did put together a little book and a project, The Born Among Mirrors. So the project was less about Lebanon and more about my family and our
Completely
journey.
shifted on
Totally, yeah. But that's the wonderful thing about projprojects, right? They take on a life of their own.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they tell you where to go after a while. It's like kids, They start out being the boss, and then they end up being the boss.
And that's really an important lesson when you're developing a documentary project. Let it go to where it's going to go.
Don't be so static.
Don't try to pigeonhole it into one thing. Yeah. If there's something else that comes about, then Joe is the prime example of that.
Yeah, I mean, if you really push it where it won't fit, it's a recipe for disaster, really, or failure at least.
That's a valuable lesson.
Well, I mean, it easily comes off as feeling forced.
Yes, you're right. Exactly, you're right.
You also run the risk too if you just get your tunnel vision and ignore all these extra elements. You could look back on this project down the line and go, if only. If only I just went the direction my gut said to do.
Yeah.
Oh man!
And as photographers, as videographers, as artists out there, that's one of the big things you have to just focus on is trust your gut.
Yep.
You'll never know what it's going to do.
Mm-hmm. Be willing to take the risks, fail.
Yeah.
You learn from failing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not a failure anymore.
Well, as you shifted this back to your family, how did they react to like your first kind of impetus on asking them for photos or information?
It wasn't something that they could react to because we were all focused on my mom's health at the time.
Yes.
And all that was happening for me as a kind of a meditative thing. I was going through stuff and letting things percolate in my brain and soul and heart and all that stuff. And so it wasn't until pretty much till both my parents passed. My dad died about a year after my mother. That the project really started to happen in a more concrete way. I had my first show opening, like maybe a few months after my dad died, something like
What
that.
year was that?
At 2009 at Rayko.
Okay.
And that project went to Washington to the Jerusalem Fund, and then it came back to the main library in San Francisco at the Jewett Gallery.
Yeah.
And I put together a little book for it, self-published thing, but it's something that's, I think it's really nice, actually.
Right.
Oh, it's really nice. That's an understatement.
But I would really love to expand on it, but
Yeah.
I admire it greatly because you're turning that camera back in, not just on yourself, but on your soul, and your family and that entire dynamic there. Was there anything that, like any big items of information that you learned along the way? Something that came up that just you never expected to come to light?
there are some. There's, we were supposed to leave by a certain date from the harbor on a certain boat, but our U.S. visas hadn't arrived or hadn't been approved yet at the embassy in Beirut. And they kept promising my dad, they're arriving any day. But they didn't arrive in time for us to meet, to get on that boat. They arrived a week later or something after the boat left. But that boat sank in the in the Atlantic.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was just totally gone. I don't know what happened to the people. I don't know the cause of anything. It's just that it was really lucky that we didn't get on that boat.
Holy
And
hell!
we caught the next boat, which got us there to Philly.
That's like some Final
What a
Destination
story.
kind of shit.
Yeah. And you never found out what happened to the what was the fate of the people on that ship?
No, I don't even know the name of that boat.
Yeah.
That's probably just it's just best not to know. Maybe
Yeah.
just
Wow.
just accept the fate and enjoy the fact that you didn't have to deal with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Talking about your parents, there, what were they doing professionally?
Both of them worked at the Chase Manhattan Bank in New York City. My mom did the night shift. I'm not sure what, some bookkeeping stuff or whatever. And my dad worked during the day. And I don't know what he did there exactly either. Until I think it was 9-10 years later, my dad was able to get a job at the World Bank in D.C. So we moved the whole family down and bought our first house, bought our first car. We flew down. It was the first time I got on an airplane.
Yeah.
It was 1965, I think.
Oh,
And
wow. Get the house, get the yard, the whole kind of American dream.
yeah, exactly.
Playing that run.
My dad was into it.
Yeah.
I was a little bummed because New York City had a lot of parks and Virginia suburbs didn't have a home run
Oh.
parks. We had a yard.
Yeah.
So it was ours.
Yeah.
I can't complain too much, but
Plus, it's New York.
yeah.
It just has this sense of air to it.
yeah, for sure. I mean, even for a kid, I have a few pictures of that neighborhood when I went back in 1972. And they were actually pretty decent pictures. Kids running in the sprinklers and garbage cans in the alleyway of our old building, that kind of stuff. In a funky old Kodak camera with faded color film.
Oh yeah. So, but you went to school in Charlottesville, man.
Yeah,
Down
college.
in Charlottesville College. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's some beautiful countryside down there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just came from there. Didn't
Yeah, I
you?
just
You were
came
just
from
there.
there. I was just in Charlottesville and Culpeper, actually, where my mother lives now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's as long as it's not summertime, it's great.
Is that right? Oh yeah, no, I heard it gets hot in Foggy Bottom. Yeah,
Hot and humid.
Oh
and
my God, yeah, yeah.
Without air conditioning, I don't know how people do it. But
Oof. Oh, yeah.
maybe that was the real reason I moved here.
There it is. That's the reason I moved out of Chicago, except the opposite reason. It's too damn cold. Well, let's pivot off of the Born Among Mirrors and move over to the Home Away from Home. And this one seems to have similar elements, but it looks like you're focusing more on a Palestinian's life here in America. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about that, and we'll expand on that project a bit more.
Home Away from Home has a subtitle called Little Palestine by the Bay. It's about the Palestinian community in the Bay Area, which is the second largest in the United States. And I think it's about 50,000 strong.
Okay.
And what I did was I did oral interviews and black and white portraits of members of the community, and with the intention of having large portraits with audio at the exhibitions. And the reason I did that was, growing up in this country, I always felt that Palestinians never really had a voice of their own. Whenever something happened in the Middle East or in Europe or anywhere, it was always some expert or a government official or even an Israeli talking about Palestinians, but you never see a Palestinian talking about Palestinians. And that's been changing in the last 10, 15 years. It's starting to change.
Mm-hmm. Still long way to go, though, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Because if it were right where it should be, then things would be really different in the Middle East right now.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so I wanted to give a voice, literally and figuratively, to the Palestinian community in this country. Mm-hmm. And which it was really fun because I got to meet members of the community that I hadn't known. I felt I was integrated into the community better. I learned a lot about them and myself because a lot of their experiences were things I was very familiar with, like growing up not speaking Arabic or learning it as an adult, or people wondering where you're really from and trying to say, well, kind of like Italian or something.
You're kind of dealing with a cultural conflict within your own, community.
Yeah.
You just don't. Did it feel kind of like just kind of in this weird neutral zone?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you're in a foreign country. Here, you feel like you're different. Then you go there, and they make you feel like you're a foreigner,
right,
too.
Right, right. Which so many people, especially here in our country, experience that every day. And but I love the fact that you use the audio to go beyond just the visual, because hearing somebody's voice, their inflections, the way that they are talking about a particular subject, there's emotion there that you're just never going to be able to get.
There's a passion that comes out
in
your voice that you could tell.
Yeah. You guys got it. I mean, that's exactly what I was hoping for, that people could relate and understand and feel the people that I was presenting. I mean, even the fact that you had to use, at the galleries, I put a little QR code by the picture so that you could scan it and listen to the interview or parts of the interview on the radio. And to me, that was almost like have people listening to a conversation on the phone, like you're talking to them, because the conversations were held very informally, candidly, like I was getting to meet somebody across a cafe table, as opposed to some kind of formal journalistic interview like 60 Minutes or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Which I'm sure was difficult for the people whenever you sat down and you told them what they're going to have to do. I'm sure there was some nervousness involved.
Or a lot of them,
Yeah.
But, you could tell I have I think a relatively disarming personality.
Pretty well.
And it works for me when I'm doing my own interviewing.
Yeah. And most of these are like 3 to 5 minutes. I think a couple of them were like 8 or 10, but you're keeping them short.
You have to.
Right. Pretty much.
Well, we're the kind that we go the Peter Jackson route with our podcast, where it's like hour and a half, and people are begging for us to stop.
and some of the people that you interviewed were very highly successful people in this community. I noticed that.
A number of professors, I noticed.
Yeah, professors, engineers.
Interior designer from
pharmacists.
Hillsborough.
Yep.
Pharmacists, no, they're all over the place. In fact, I had trouble finding people from the lower economic. There are some, but they were really hard to find because the Palestinian community, I read maybe about 15 years ago, that was the most educated community in the world.
Really?
Yeah. And, per capita.
I
mean, I got 2 master's degrees, and I probably, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of people. There's people running grocery stores in San Francisco with engineering masters or PhD in history. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. And
you make money one way, but you're getting all the education, training, and whatever it is for yourself. I mean, a couple of the people, like one guy, Wajih Saadi, he's a PhD in history, and he came here. He owns a deli near the Kaiser Hospital on Divisadero and Sutter. And he sold it now, but a coffee shop on Dolores and Chavez Street, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe some other places. I don't remember. So it's not unusual.
Yeah. The successes were just amazing. I'm glad you brought up Saidi and some of these people. I loved listening to these interviews and hearing what the people had to say, because there were so many different topics that, there's not really one specific topic they talk about. It's wide and it's varying. And on the website, and we'll share it with the show notes for our listeners here, was there like a dozen or so that's available on the
27.
27,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Was there anybody in particular that stuck out to you? I got a couple of speakers here.
Sure, there are. I mean, there was a young man named Tanaya who it was almost like a college essay. He gave me his opening line, which was the perfect answer to the question, and then he went down the list to give examples to justify.
And what was the question?
Let me guess. Let me try to remember.
You had to know I was going to ask that.
Yeah. No, and it's an obvious question. What does it feel like to be a Palestinian in the United States? Something along those lines. I don't remember exactly what I phrased. It's on the tapes.
Exactly. Go listen to the tape. But yeah, about this gentleman and his response there.
Yeah, and he talked about his feelings in school. How it was like to be watching 9/11 with his father, who wasn't Palestinian, and I think his parents were separated at the time. So his father had one perspective on 9/11, and his mother, who is Palestinian, had a totally different perspective on 9/11. And he explained how different it is for them. And then there was Lubna Marar, who's a student at San Francisco State. And she speaks very forcefully about Palestinian identity and history. And
that was a good interview.
I really liked that one. There's a bunch. And I tried to have a lot of diversity in terms of age and professions and geography. I think the only Bay Area county I didn't find somebody is Marin.
Marin.
And I actually did find somebody, but they weren't willing to participate because they were afraid of what might happen to their family back home.
I was going to ask you about that. Was there any fears of repercussion or anything with some of these
people,
families?
For this family in Marin, there was a couple that I interviewed in Hillsborough whose parents were visiting from Jerusalem, and I thought, well, this would be great. I'll get 2 generations on one day in the same family.
Knock it out.
And then they reconsidered when it came to be their turn to be interviewed, because they thought, we're going back in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have to live there, and we're right in Jerusalem, which is a hot spot.
Now I'm curious. Now, what type of repercussions were they afraid of facing back there, from what they would say to you? They weren't explicit, but in my mind, it had to do with harassment at the airport, harassment when they're there, crossing the checkpoints, maybe even being kicked out of their homes. I mean, a lot of people without doing any of this stuff are being just kicked out of their homes because their home is in a place where they want to have Jewish families as opposed to Arab families. Yeah.
So it's just a fearful atmosphere there. I mean, their house used to be, they said it used to be in this beautiful neighborhood just outside the walls of Jerusalem, but this new Israeli wall encloses them on 3 sides, and their whole street's dead now because nobody passes through anymore. There's no traffic, there's no tourists, there's nothing. So they're basically closed off. Sorry, I hit that thing. Boing.
You can just hear it just rattle through. But yeah, so they're closed off, like just isolated, and I'm sure this plays a big role. So I can understand where the fear would come from.
Yeah, so basically they have to be careful of what anything of that they say.
Yeah.
Is,
because there are unforeseen repercussions.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them can be foreseen.
Yeah.
They know better than I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a little bit more kind of impetus on what's to come and
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, I learned to appreciate when I lived in Jerusalem back in the late 70s, was that it's easier to be radical when you're living in the United States or in Europe, but when you're living on the ground, on ground zero, that's you're the one who's got to face the implications and consequences of your radicalism or your actions or your beliefs or whatever. So it tends to, depending on how desperate the situation is, people respond in different ways.
Oh, wow.
Back then, I used to think that, wow, all the people who really want to save the Palestinians, including in the Palestinian community, were outside the country. And the ones living here are just going along their normal business. And then it was just a few years later where everything turned around because they had to start doing it themselves because they were the ones on the ground. And if they didn't risk their own safety and freedom and whatever, things weren't going to change because it couldn't happen from the outside.
Yeah. Had to step up.
Yeah. And they did. The children led the way, actually, in the first Intifada. And they paid the price, too.
Yeah.
Because they got their arms broken and their shoulders cracked and heads beaten in and arrested for throwing a rock at a tank or whatever it is.
It always seems to be this consistent cycle, insert country here, insult culture here, where it's just, in our world, there's always somewhere that's like fighting for just the struggle of living. And I love the fact that you were able to gather these people together and let them tell their own story. Because again, I just want to come back to the audio thing here. I just find that so fascinating and so much worth a listen. And you said you had 27 subjects. You were doing medium format film, the images.
Yeah, black and white medium format.
Oh yes,
film. Oh man,
film. Yeah.
I'm telling you, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reason I did that was film has at least a symbolic credibility that digital will never have. In the sense that you can always manipulate a digital image, but if you manipulate a film image, you always got the negative to go back to, which you can't manipulate. So, and that's one of the things that I learned growing up here in terms of the Palestinian issue, is that your credibility is always questioned. They're always trying to put you on the defensive. And so right from the start, I wanted everything to be verifiable, even the picture, by having a negative. And in fact, I didn't use lights for any of the images. They're all available light. And part of that is a sense of genuineness too. Yeah. It's totally symbolic. It might be totally unconscious, but it's a symbolic effort. Not to mention it's beautiful.
Yeah. But there's an inherent honesty in the whole thing. Yeah,
right, exactly. Right. And perhaps really the most practical reason I didn't use lights and everything, all the paraphernalia around photography, was it makes the subject feel easier.
True.
You're going to get a nicer, more relaxed, maybe spontaneous image than you are when you set up 2, 3, 4 lights, whatever. You have assistants, makeup people. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
When you want the person to be themselves.
Yeah. People think they have to be on. Yeah. Yeah. When you have all the lights. But yeah, you're right.
And,
you're right.
And it makes them nervous. I mean, when they're not used to all this kind of,
And you've already tossed a microphone in front of their face too. So
no, I didn't.
Oh, you hadn't done that yet?
There was this great little mic you could buy for $35 at Best Buy. You just clip on their shirt.
Little lavalier.
No, but I'd like to know that one because they don't make mine anymore. It was too good and too cheap. And they stopped making it. It was a Sanyo mic.
Oh, yeah.
And they were fantastic, great quality. And you could still hear me across the room, but the quality, I mean, there's noise. And
Oh, of course, but that gives an ambiance to it.
Yeah. And we were here, and in 2 minutes, they've totally forgotten about it. So,
yep. You don't have like what we're sitting in front of here with big swing arms, big ass microphone in your face, just blocking you.
Right. It's like a licorice ice cream cone.
Yes. So you were actually doing the interviews while shooting then?
I would interview first.
Okay.
And doing that, I got to know them. They got to know me, develop a rapport. And then I'm also looking around to figure out what might make the most best spot for a shoot.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that there's a lot of importance in knowing and getting to know your subject as you go?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that was the whole. The more I know them, the more I'll be able to present them. In a genuine way.
Yeah.
And that project had a nice symmetry to the first project, Born Among Mirrors, because the Born Among Mirrors is pointing the camera, so to speak, at myself and my family's experience. And then the second project is actually taking the camera, turning it around, and focusing on others in the community and to see what their experiences are.
I definitely recommend everybody out there listening to go take a look and a listen to this.
That's right.
And like you said, all the every single one of these interviews are going to be available at a link that we're going to provide on the show notes, and with a portrait of each of these people as well. You had printed these on silver gelatin when you did your show. How big did you go?
16 by 20 prints.
16 by 20.
Yeah. And it was a great hybrid of the technology that's available, because you get film, I scanned the negs, and then Photoshop allowed me to surgically retouch images, in case there was something really funky. And then I sent them to a lab outside Boston, and they were able, through laser light, expose regular silver gelatin Ilford paper and put it through the chemistry. And
using a digital file?
Using a digital file. And there were only two places in the country that I found that could do that. One was in LA, one was in Boston.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to get the link.
It's a great process, because it feels like darkroom. It is darkroom. But you don't have to do any burning and dodging. It's all done. That part's all done digitally.
Oh, hey, welcome to the future.
Yeah. I know. I was crossing some bridges here on this project, between the audio and the printing. It felt like, wow, I'm doing new things.
Well, you brought in the QR code for the gallery and everything. I mean, you're really mixing a lot of avenues into the same project.
Well, that was kind of forced on me for practical reasons. I mean, it would have been nice to have a little audio equipment there at each picture with headphones that people could listen to.
Yeah.
But, the venues didn't want to have things that could walk away, which they guaranteed would happen.
Well, you don't have the security places like SF MoMA have. So.
Right. Yeah. Plus, they're expensive.
Yes.
And this thing was totally free.
Yeah.
The QR code was just totally free. So it's a tough deal.
Yeah, why not?
All you need is the Wi-Fi in the air, and you got it.
All right, so sorry for the interruption, but I just want to pop in and give a nod to our sponsor, Glass Key Photo. Their continued support helps keep our mics hot, and we couldn't be more appreciative. Glass Key is San Francisco's premier analog photography shop, and whether you're looking for film cameras, camera repairs, or if you just want to pick up some amazing zines created by artists right here in the Bay Area, this is the place to go. They even host a number of events, including photo walks, group critiques, or even just stop in for some all-around great conversation. Located now right off Van Ness in Midtown, you can find the store at 1230 Sutter Street. And somehow, these two amazing guys, Gordon and Matt, keep the doors open 7 days a week from 12 to 6 p.m. And they're always tracking down some amazing new products like discontinued film, hard-to-find cameras, and an endless array of used lenses. So when you're in San Francisco, definitely stop on by Glass Key Photo and say hello from all of us here at Street PX. Now let's get back to the show. Now, during this project, throughout the process of it, what would you say your greatest challenge was?
Well, finding good subjects.
And how did you go about finding the people to interview? Did you just cold call, go through friends, or a Facebook board for?
I did that for a while, but it wasn't working because you're asking people to share something that's intimate and potentially has repercussions for them, and they're not. They won't know who I am. Right. So
people are suspicious already, let alone just a stranger going, "Hey, tell me your most intimate details."
Yeah, I know about your, conflicts with Israeli soldiers or something.
Craigslist, person looking for a local Palestinian. So you just kind of like
I did some volunteer work, photography for Aswat Orchestra, which is the Arab orchestra in the Bay Area.
Okay,
and I got to know a lot of people through that. They would recommend people, or I could actually shoot some of the people from the orchestra. And once I shot a few people, they kind of snowballed. People would recommend people, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And it was just very organic. All it took was a few people to start with, and it was just a matter of money and time.
Yeah.
I do have one quick question before we switch. After all of this is said and done, but finishing on Born Among Mirrors and finishing and wrapping up Home Away from Home, did you feel like your perspective changed in any way from beginning to end about the dynamic of Palestine and Lebanon and then the people's reactions here in America?
Not really, actually.
More just solidified what you were already thinking, or?
Well, in some ways it made me angrier about what was going on because I was seeing some of the human consequences of it, and hearing some stories that happened in 1948 or happened last summer. It just continued, and it got worse and worse and worse over time. But the good thing that happened was that I felt a more integral part of the community, the Palestinian community here than I did before. And I learned some things about the Palestinian community in this country. Chicago's the largest community. And I would really love to get this show in Chicago because I think it really should go there.
That's a Chicago guy right there.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on this, man. I tell you.
Because I think it really needs and then, other places. It's been up and down the Bay Area. It might actually come here to Alameda at some point in the next year or so.
Bring it on.
To the public library. There is some people trying to make that happen.
I see Jim's hamsters running over here. And I mean, we were talking before the show because my last question with these is kind of where does it go from here? And I remember you were saying, well, be careful with that question because I'm not sure yet. That might be the idea is head to Chicago and then there you got your kind of do another 2 dozen there.
And there's going to be a lot of interest in Chicago.
Yeah, I'm just spitballing.
Think,
and you don't have to credit me with that idea.
I'll bring you along for the pizza.
There we go.
I do want, before we transition over to the landscape, the cooking lessons of Palestinian Asian American story. Yeah. What is that about? Tell us about that. That sounded so interesting.
It's a 10-minute preview, or we were trying to a teaser, 10-minute teaser to try to raise funds to actually make a full-length film, which we ended up getting too distracted by other things to pull off. But it's on its own, it's actually pretty good. My girlfriend and I, she filmed a lot of our efforts to take care of my mom for a while. And she did some intimate interviews with my dad, and I did some writing and narrating on it. And we're basically go through some of the hardest period of my mom's illness, but it mixes in my dad's old family movies from the 50s and 60s. And they're really incredible. I mean, he was actually a photographer back then. He actually got work published in some German magazines back in, I think, the 30s. But, he never, I don't think he ever took it seriously. But as a family, we benefited because we have a lot of snapshots. We have that roll from 1956, and he took family movies. So we incorporated some of those family movies with current stuff that my girlfriend produced, and she put together this wonderful 10-minute movie that is priceless. A little intimate look and a very emotional point in our family history.
Yeah.
So very important.
Yes, that is, man.
Yeah, Cooking Lessons, a Palestinian-American story, I believe it's called.
Yeah,
it's on Vimeo.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
I'm gonna definitely check it out. I thought it was a book for some reason. I'm glad you point that out.
See, you got to
Yeah,
research
there you
better.
go. Yeah.
But no, I'm so glad you brought that up because I completely glossed right over it.
In fact, every time this Home Away from Home is exhibited, it grows and it develops. And the last manifestation of it at the San Francisco the main library at San Francisco, we ran videos as well. We had 3 5 to 10 minute videos on a screen so that there was a lot more going on. It became a multimedia project as opposed to just photos and audio.
Mm-hmm.
You could see cooking lessons. You could see a 5-minute teaser I made for Home Away from Home to get people to actually try to listen, with the pictures and a few snippets of voices and stuff. And then the third video was an interview I did with an Arab American TV station that came and photographed the second show down in San Mateo a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a really good, Louis Karim, he did a really nice little show for that interview and walk around the exhibit and stuff.
Yeah.
Was there any cooking in this?
Actually, there is, but you don't really learn anything from the cooking. You just learn how important cooking is to family life.
Yeah.
That's truth. Food brings people together. Food is kind of like the focal point between any family dynamic. And I just got to point this out real quick, and it's completely out of left field. But whenever you were talking about that you were born in Beirut, my mind comes back to the Anthony Bourdain episode that where because Anthony Bourdain does this documentary where he goes and eats food and gets to meet cooks and so forth. And he went to Beirut, and at that time conflict broke out, and then goes back to what we were saying. Keep an open mind when you do a project, because it went from a food-centric show to a documentary of the conflict that was going on. They were stuck up in the building that they were at. Obviously, they were in the affluent area, but he did get the chance to be able to show the violence and mayhem that happened.
Yeah.
And it's just is constantly happening, just over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he actually did a show in Gaza too.
Yes.
Probably later.
Yep.
I'm not sure. And I haven't seen either of them, but I have heard of them. And I guess he has them on YouTube or something. I can check them out.
Netflix and so forth. The Beirut one was a little bit more kind of like in your face because conflict broke out right outside the building that they were at. And then they were blocked in, held in there for hours. And then they had gotten word that something bad was coming, so they went out the back. So you saw the video of them sneaking out, and however Hollywoodized it was, obviously things like that take place. They were truly in danger, and they were also documenting it, and they wouldn't turn the cameras off. And I respect them for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They were really smart. I mean, it's real hardcore professional.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if they would have just been like, no, we're here for the food, that's what we need to tape, then there goes that, that award-winning show.
You have that tunnel vision, you miss out. You miss out on something that's more important happening around you.
Yeah. I mean, prime example is that Conan O'Brien fiasco when he went to Israel just this past month or so. He goes and he poses with all these Israeli soldiers and all this nice stuff. And then he makes a symbolic visit to the West Bank and talks or has coffee or something with an Arab, and that was it.
Yeah, it was just one-sided the whole way.
Pretty much, yeah. And it was very patronizing, too. And telling the world how great Israel was and how they made him feel like he was part of the army or something. I don't remember all the crazy stuff.
Oh, my God.
It's such a burning and divisive issue. Just the even concept of this country, non-country, this culture situation that's just overlapped one another, and they're trying to survive and thrive independently, but it's difficult. And from the outside looking in, people like Conan or what have you, they have these knee-jerk reactions, not really knowing what they're doing, and you don't realize the kind of damage or something that just words can do. Mm-hmm. And especially splitting a country or just the shoe dropping and something just popping off like the Beirut situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're getting really
Yeah,
heavy
we're getting
here.
heavy. It's time for landscape work, and that's where Jim comes in.
Yeah,
Jim,
because I was going over your website, looking through your website, and there were actually several aspects of your website that I fell in love with. One was landscape, but the urban shots were just incredible. They had this ethereal quality to them that just, it was just fantastic. Because the streetcar, the one you had, that streetcar just blew me away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's actually, that one actually is a work of art because it's shot on black and white film, and I hand tinted.
You hand colored it.
really?
And just to try it, as an exercise. But it came out really nice.
Yeah, it surely did.
So I kept it, and,
Did you hand color any of the other ones, or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that was
I figured, God, I succeeded so well on that one. Anything else is going downhill.
Quit while you're ahead.
Don't fix something that ain't broken.
Yeah. And besides, that's not something I really want to get into too much. You know, that's the main reason. But I've done it, and I know what it'll take. So if I need to do it in the future, I know I can pull it off if I have to. So.
That was very cool.
Yeah.
But your landscape work is incredible. Probably like a lot of us, we started with landscapes, and oh my God, I mean, I was looking at just especially Monument Valley. You had some down in Santa Cruz, at least one down in Santa Cruz that I saw, and Yosemite. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks. As you said, we all start out. Yeah. Really, because nature's all around us.
Yeah, it doesn't talk back. We're going to get the picture.
Go shoot
it doesn't run away.
Go try and photograph a polar bear and see how that works out.
But you can still mess it up.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can still mess it up.
Well, I feel really lucky because when I came back from living in Jerusalem for a couple of years, I was in D.C., and Ansel Adams had a big exhibition for a new book that he put together. The book was, humongous size.
Encyclopedia.
I forgot what it was called. And at the time, it was $100 a book. And nowadays, that's nothing.
Probably $1,000.
Yeah. But he was there, and there was a long line, but I went up to shake hands with him. And just the fact that I shook hands with him, I think instilled some magic.
Right now, I'm touching the hand that shook Ansel Adams.
Yeah. So I think something came through.
Gave you the touch.
Yeah, and my work's nothing like his, but it just having that 0.1% of whatever magic he had raised mine to a touch.
As they say, more talent in the little finger than I've got my entire body.
Well, what really impressed me about the guy was his nose, because it looked like it had been made of clay and somebody had stuck their thumb through it that it was like a big concave bend in his nose. And I was like, that is really weird. And that's what really struck me. And then I found out later, he was a San Franciscan kid, and he was climbing a wall during the 2006 earthquake, and he fell, and the wall fell on top of him, broke his nose, and it never got fixed or something. I'm not sure what. But that's what caused it. Was the 1906 earthquake, which busted his nose.
Wow. Well, that's your daily Street PX Ansel Adams factor. Intriguing. And all over a 1906 earthquake, which was epic and just slightly historical, right?
Now, Monument Valley, I mean, the stuff you did in Monument Valley was incredible, and that's one of the places I've actually been to, and it was a religious experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a sense of light there that you just can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. And just the serenity and the quiet and everything is just, it was majestic. There's another word. I'm throwing out all these adjectives and stuff, but there's not enough to describe that place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a photographer's wet dream. It's just so much stuff, whether you go small and do macro, or you do the big expansive, or whether you want to get motion, or there's so much there.
Yeah. Did you see a lot of this when you were on your motorcycle trip across the country?
I did, but those particular pictures I took after I had moved to San Francisco and went back to visit friends, and we went camping up there.
Oh, okay.
And the funny thing about it was I only got a handful of pictures off before my camera broke. I didn't even finish a roll.
Oh, no.
And my camera died. And I was like, oh, man, I'm here in Monument Valley and nothing to shoot with.
Mental picture.
My God.
I remember sitting, when I first realized that I was sitting on a little hill waiting for the sun. It was setting sun to get just to the right spot. And when it did, I go,
Oh, no.
and nothing.
Oh,
I was like, what's this? Come on, move it.
Bang it against a rock.
And it all just disappeared. And then it actually did work a little bit more the next morning, but it didn't want to take that sunset shot.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah, are you shooting digital for your landscape work or film predominantly?
Nowadays, mostly digital.
Is there any particular reason why you've veered away from your film?
No. It's just that I'm doing a lot of experimenting, and having the instant results helps me fine tune and make adjustments.
Yeah.
Because I'm not just taking a nice shot on a tripod. I'm be doing things like more experimental landscapes these days, like shooting pictures with the camera outside the car doing 85 miles an hour, that kind of thing. And I play it both ways. I try to get the blurs, I try to stop action, and you have to anticipate, which is a really good skill, especially when you're doing documentary. This is, the pictures come out, some of them come out really beautifully, but the real thing I'm getting out of it is practicing my reflexes and anticipation, knowing that tree is going to be over here and it's going to look really great in about half a second. And I got to be ready to catch it, even knowing this camera is going to take half a second to respond to my clip.
Yeah.
You also have to be aware of you have to have that spatial awareness too.
Yeah.
It's not just that it's going to be there, but your background is going to also change in its perspective on you as well.
Right. You just have to, and you only get one crack at it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you could go back and then drive by again, maybe.
Yeah, well, that hasn't happened yet. You just figure there's going to be another tree.
Exactly. There's plenty of other trees.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, talking about locations and so forth, might as well go ahead and get the old last question here and let you get back to your day. The same question we ask all of our guests is, if you had the opportunity to photograph any place since the inception of the camera, where would that be and when?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It made me think about digital and film a lot. But ultimately, I think I would go back to the Middle East in the early 20th century. It's a very picturesque part of the world, beautiful. It's been photographed by competent and great photographers, but it kind of romanticizes a lot about the region. Empty deserts with lonely Bedouin leading camels, or exotic women maybe, or something. I would like to go back and shoot it from an insider's point of view, somebody who maybe knows something about the culture and has an awareness of what Edward Said called Orientalism, where you sort of project onto the region your own imaginations and fantasies.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do it from the inside out, or inside perspective.
I like that term, Orientalism. It really tells you a lot about what's going on.
Also, anything that we have is kind of like it's skewed. What you're describing.
Right. Yeah. The British aristocrats with the pith helmets, and it's
Lawrence of Arabia.
That's exactly what I was thinking. The Lawrence of Arabia PR. Let's be honest. The Lawrence of Arabia at that time was kind of like celebrity to represent, and it was just a white guy in Arab garb that's now the representation of it. That shows how skewed things are.
Yeah, the great white savior of the Arab world.
Right.
Helped conquer the Ottomans.
Well,
off of that, let's go ahead and let the crowd out there know where is the best place they can find out more about you and see more of your imagery.
Well, I have a site on socialdocumentary.net. You can get on that site and search my name. I have 4 or 5 projects on that site. I have a lot of the landscapes that Jim was talking about on my personal website, which is myname.smugmug.com, with no spaces in my name. And I guess you'll have the spelling of my name.
Yes, yeah. We'll have all of this in the show notes, and we'll also include the link for all of the audio tracks and portraits on your project there, Home Away from Home.
Okay, great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you could put a link up for the Vimeo too. It's public.
Yes, that's the cooking lessons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely adding
that I said it was a book, but
Well, that's the next step.
there you go.
Moving pictures. Excellent. All right. Well, Jim, where can we find out more information about you?
As always, Jim Watkins Photo, and all the links to my social media platforms are right there.
Wonderful. And you can find out more about me at recasper.com. That's all of my social media links, all of my blog posts and workshops. And also too, Joe actually does workshops through Harvey Milk Photo Center.
That's right.
And I'm so sorry, I've completely forgot to bring that up. So we'll add notes into your classes. What classes are you teaching?
Mostly the walk-around classes.
Mm-hmm.
They're 2-3 hours each around the city. North Beach, the waterfront, Sutro, Baths, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Glen Park. Glen Park's a beautiful one.
So if you want to get a nice kind of picturesque tour, definitely take a look at Harvey Milk Photo Center there for all the classes that Najib has available for you to enjoy. So take a look there. Also, take a look at streetpx.com. That's going to be where you find all of our previous episode, which is well over 50 now, and all of our blog posts and links to fun things you'll find right there. If you enjoy all of our episodes here, all of our interviews, and you want to help us keep the mics hot and the bandwidth flowing, go take a look at patreon.com/StreetPX. You can give $1, you can give $5, whatever you feel comfortable with. It all goes right back into the show to help us update and repair gear, because that's the nature of things. Also, to help us get into more ears out there, go take a look on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, anything that you can listen to a podcast on. You can find us, but we want reviews. We need stars. So go take a look at iTunes and give us stars. That's like digital currency for us. So a big thank you to all of our listeners out there, and above all, a big thank you to Najib for coming in, talking with us.
Thanks
Thanks
Joe.
a lot. Appreciate it.
Excellent. And we will talk to all of you wonderful people out there in 2 weeks. Have a great night.
See ya.